All right, this is the book of 2 Corinthians chapter 9 and verse 7. It says, every man according as he purposeth, all right, in his heart, so let him give, not grudgingly or of necessity, for Yahweh loveth a cheerful giver. I want to give all honor, all glory, and all praise unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Rakakwadash. Double honors unto the elders of the nation of Israel. Shalom to you brothers out there that are laboring, enduring the elements, making your body a living sacrifice, trying to seal the elect, making your call and election sure, seeking out your own salvation, as well as you sisters that are learning, listening, applying, being obedient to your husbands. Shalom, shalom. Again, it's your brother Zachariah coming back to you with another lesson. All right, here on this Thursday night, and Lord willing, this be edifying. Okay, so I read this in 2 Corinthians 9 and 7. All right, 9 and verse 7. Which it says for, down here, just going straight to the bottom, but it says for Yahweh loveth a cheerful giver, okay? It says let him not give grudgingly, all right, or of necessity, okay? But a cheerful giver, So basically what I want to talk about in this lesson is watching out for like leeches, users, abusers, beggars, all right? Talk about beggars while being a cheerful giver. Because a lot of times being a cheerful giver, it's a beautiful thing, okay? I have that type of spirit on me, but you want to watch out for people that will try to use and abuse you in this thing, okay? Because that thing could happen, and even not even that. It might not even be somebody that's in the faith. You might just be helping somebody out, you might know them. They may not be in this truth, but you just, they see that you're a nice person and they'll try to take advantage of you. All right. And in these days and times, which we're in some very dark and evil times. All right. You want to be mindful of that. OK. But hey, it's going to get so bad out here. You ain't going to have it to really be out here helping nobody. OK, for real. The way that we're truly helping people is bringing out this word. OK, bringing out this truth, doing these lessons and things like that. That's the best help, But, if you have it, whether like financially, and it's not always money, it could be other things. But with all that, you want to be careful. OK, even time can be very precious. All right. But Yahweh does love a cheerful giver. So I want to go a little bit into that before we get into the other half of the lesson. All right. And I pray this be an edifying lesson unto you. I just felt in the spirit to do this because, I have encountered somebody lately who it seems like they was kind of like having that type of spirit on them. OK, and you were going out your way to really help them, but it was becoming more of a grievance unto you, and that was one of the things. It was kind of messing around with me. All right. And then it's a little bit too much. But this is the book of Matthew, chapter 25. Starting at verse 35, I'm going to read down to 40. And it says, for I was a hungered, okay, and ye gave me meat. Right? I was thirsty and ye gave me drink. I was a stranger and ye took me in. This is Yahweh Shai, all right? Talking about Yahweh Shai. It says, naked and ye clothed me. I was sick and ye visit me. All right? It says, I was in prison and ye came unto me. Verse 37 says, then shall the righteous answer him, saying, Lord, when saw we thee hungered, all right, and fed thee, or thirsty and gave thee drink? Okay, when saw we thee a stranger and took thee in, or naked and clothed thee? All right, verse 39 it says, or when saw we thee sick or in prison and came unto thee? Okay, verse 40 it says, and the king shall answer and say unto them, verily I say unto you, all right, in so much, all right, as ye have done it unto one of the least of these my brethren, ye have done it unto me. Okay, so the way that you're treating your fellow Israelite, your fellow brethren, all right, in this thing, okay, then it's how you're doing Yahweh Shai. So if you're mistreating somebody or you just like disregard them or something, then you could be very well you're mistreating Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shai. Okay, so that was something to keep in mind. All right, so yeah, you have people in the spirit that do things and they help you. I've had brothers that have helped me, in certain situations. Okay. Whether, like I said, it's not always money or giving like material things, but it could be, advice. All right. Knowledge, giving me more understanding into the breakdown of some of these scriptures and things like that. I look at, those things, all right, as helping somebody, all right, especially, to get that understanding. Okay. Oh, shoot, man, this cat came out of nowhere. Like, this cat's wild as hell. All right, Salakia for that, y'all. But yeah, you have that. All right. Now, I want to go into some other precepts. All right. It says, he that oppresseth the poor reproacheth his maker. All right. It says, but he that honoreth him have mercy on the poor. Okay. So, it's, you're looking out for the poor of our people, which a lot of us, at the end of the day, we're all really at a low state. Like, you got some that might be a little bit better off than others. Okay. And they might do things to kind of help you out and stuff like that. Like, for an example, I use this as an example, coming into the faith, I was probably a couple years in, but I was still learning. I was a newborn baby, so I'm still learning things, because when you come into this thing, you're a newborn baby. But, it was coming to that time where, hey, you got to get out, you got to teach, you got to go out in the highways and hedges. And I didn't know exactly all the thing, how it goes about with the highways and hedges. But there were brothers, like I said earlier, brothers enlightened me and brought me into the understanding of it. Okay. So, brought me into the understanding, but, I didn't have the garments and stuff. And then there were a couple of sites where they were kind of like, they wouldn't even sell you a garment unless, they want to see your videos and stuff. And I was thinking like, well, the whole purpose of going out on highways is the prophets prophesy you will have the garment on. So I would like to start off by going out there with it already on. But they were wanting to see videos. So I guess you will see a video of me with none on. Like some of my very first videos that I did, if you ever go to the very beginning, when I started, I didn't have a garment. I didn't have the garments on, because it was prophesied that we would be out there prophesying clothed in sackcloth. It'd be down to the foot. All right. And but I had some brothers in the faith, man, that actually one brother actually bought me a garment and the other brother actually made it from scratch and so that was very beautiful of those two brothers, man, to go into doing that. They didn't have to, I didn't ask them, and they did that on their own. All right. So God bless them, man. Yahweh Shem Yahushai, bless them brothers. Okay. This is another precept here, okay? And it's not that I couldn't afford it or anything. I didn't really know about to go about it, but they are kind of like, if you go on a site and see about the garments, they cost a pretty penny, But anyways, this is Proverbs 19 and verse 17. It says, he that have pity upon the poor, all right, lendeth unto Yahweh, okay? All right, and that which he have given, all right, will he pay him again, okay? So that's why I always even I told them, but I said, man, Yahweh Shem shall bless you and yours. Okay. And I continue to say that. I didn't want to, for a long time, I wouldn't even mention their names, which I don't know if I ever did. I think I might have said it in a lesson or something. It might have been prior. It might have been a few years after it happened, or a year or so after it happened. But really, when people do things, they do stuff in secret. Like, them brothers never jumped out and said, oh, I did this or did that, because you're not supposed to just be like, some people will help and give to the poor. Like, you see some of these people on TV, some of these so-called Christians, like, they'll be trying to give you money, but at the same time they're filming it. You see it on social media too, where they'll go and they filming them going to a less fortunate person on the streets and say, hey man, we want to give you $500, and then you're looking at it like, oh man, it's so sweet and stuff like that, and people get all teary-eyed. But the whole thing about that is like, man, why are you doing that? They're not doing it, with a sincere spirit, especially if you with cameras and showing it to be seen. All right. But again, it says, he that have pity upon the poor, all right, lendeth unto the Lord Yahweh, all right. And it says, and that which he have given, all right, will he pay him again. All right. Now, the whole thing about the being seen and doing it all on camera and stuff like that. Well, this is the book of Matthew, chapter 6, starting at verse 3. It says, all right, but when thou doest alms, okay, keep that word alms in mind. We're going to look that word up. Alms, it says, let not thy left hand know what thy right hand doeth. Okay. Verse 4, it says that thy alms may be in secret. So you see that? And it says, and thy Father which seeth in secret himself shall reward thee openly. Okay, so the Heavenly Father will, when you're doing things like that, you do it in secret. It's not like you're trying to be seen or nothing like that. And that's why I try not to mention those brothers, because they didn't do that to be seen. They did that, out of love, and that was brotherly love and just, helping a brother out. They know, hey, this thing, it could be kind of rough, and some of these brothers, they've been in it. They have more years on me, maybe twice as much. So they know what it's like for a beginner, a brother that's just coming into this thing. All right. And then as the years come, you get stronger and stronger and stronger. And plus the way that they moved with you, that should show you should also take note of that. Maybe it might come an opportunity where you're up on your feet pretty good and there's a new brother coming in the faith and you might be able to help him out. All right. But again, it says that thy alms may be in secret, and thy Father which seeth in secret himself shall reward thee openly. All right. So I wanted to just pull up alms, definition, according to the Bible. All right. And let's see. All right. You got this one right here. The second part, it says a major part of Lent, all right, is alms giving, which is donating one's time. See, that's part of it, one's time. It says money and possessions to those who are less fortunate. Okay, so you do things to help out the less fortunate. All right. And it says throughout the Old Testament, the notion of alms, concrete aid giving to the poor, is understood primarily in the context of justice. All right, and I don't read all that, but it's just giving aid to the poor, pretty much, just helping them out. Okay, it could be money, it could be in other things, your time and stuff like that. So, it's a beautiful thing. So that's, and people do that cheerfully. Okay, being able to help somebody out. Okay, but you also have, with that being a cheerful giver, there's a lot of wolves out here. All right, there's a lot of wolves in sheep's clothing. All right, there's a lot of people who are not really, they just they're out to get what they can get. Okay, you have a lot of that. I mean, there was even like relationships. You might get into a relationship with a woman. Before I was in the truth, there was a woman I was with, and the whole thing about her was she was always trying to get stuff out of you, and it didn't, that relationship didn't even last long. I mean, seriously, like we were like maybe a week or two in, and she was already talking about her electric bill, and which her electric bill was like 300 and something. And I'm thinking like, and I'm thinking, what does that got to do with me? You know what I'm saying? And I told her, I'm like, but I didn't say that. I was thinking it, but I just said, I ain't got it, And then, what she told me after that? She said, oh, well, we ain't got to be together. Like, what does that to say? After the fact I told you I ain't got it. So, that just shows you that she wasn't with me to be with me. It was like, oh, I'm getting you to pay my bills. Like, what do you think? I'm some kind of sucker or a trick or something? It don't work like that. Nah, There's an old saying, I was born at night, but not last night, So that was a crazy thing with this girl, man. She didn't really want to be with me, And when I first met her, I was talking like, hey, let's go out to eat or do something. You want to get to know him a little bit more. She didn't want to do all that. She had that mindset of give me that money, give me the money. So it was just a lot of stuff. And then I come to find out she's a big weed smoker and all that, which I don't do all that, Even back when I was in the world, I didn't get into all that kind of stuff. Not saying that I never smoked before. I did it, but I wasn't somebody like a lot of these people around here. They're like, they have to. It's like a thing for them. They have to have it every day. And she was bad with it. How you gonna be somebody that smokes and you can't, but you don't have any money. You can't afford it. If you can't afford the habit, then you don't need to be doing it, But they don't see it like that, okay? But I want to read all four of these quotes right here, and then we're going to go back into some more scriptures. But it says, some people will only love you as much as they can use you. You see that? Their loyalty ends when ends where the benefits stop. So if you're there's like some beneficial thing to you, and as a recent, it was somebody that was pretty much coming around trying to use and abuse me, and I wasn't going for that. Like I said, I'll help somebody out. People, they try to come with the whole sob story, And then sometimes you feel sorry for somebody. They might give a testimony, and it might be something that you went through. So they can play on that, and try to help, and do that. I had kinfolk that's like this. They just bum and beg all the time. They don't have a working bone in their body at all. And they will use and abuse you. So you want to be mindful of that, okay? There's another quote. It says, some people are with you not because they like you, but because you are easy to use. So they'll try to do that. And see me, like, I'm not easy to use. Now, my thing is like, what I do is I give people the benefit of the doubt. I let them think that they thinking that they're using me, even if they got something out of me or something. But then I watch their patterns, and I'm looking, and I'm like, okay. And then I call it out. And then they be looking all surprised, trying to conjure up a lie. And it don't work like that. Like, I've seen for what it is. All right. So then when you call them out on it, then they start acting funny, which just has happened here recently. And I called them out on everything, what they were doing, Actually, it was somebody that was trying to use me, money-wise, but they had money. You know what I'm saying? But they had money, like, you have money for this and that, for DoorDash and doing all this kind of stuff. But then, which that stuff's expensive. I mean, it was the trip, bringing that food in, it was coming up to like $40. And I'm thinking, like, you got money for that, but then you go all week and you're running around broke, and then you're trying to bum off of neighbors and all kinds of crazy stuff. So it's a lot of weird activity out here, and people try to come to you looking like, okay, he's, we know he's into that Bible. He's a man of the Lord, and think that they can try to use you. All right. But hey, we're not one of them Christians. You know what I'm saying? And like I said, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt in the beginning, but then we start looking, hey, I call it out. And that's when, once that happens, then they start acting funny and stuff like that. Now you're like, oh, okay, now I see, But it says people will often use you for their own benefit, and it's essential to set boundaries. Absolutely. You must set boundaries. Okay. And then ultimately they'll just wither away, because if they can't get nothing out of you, then, and it also will show, because people say, oh, we ain't got to be friends, or we ain't got to do this, we ain't got to do that. Like I told you about that girl. Oh, we ain't got to be a couple, because I didn't want to pay her electric bill, or I told her I didn't have it, because I didn't say I wasn't going to pay it. I just said I ain't got it, which I didn't. I didn't have it. I didn't have it to be paying that. Even though I might have had the money, I wasn't giving you that, And it says some people will only love you as much as they can use you. Their loyalty ends where the benefits stop. All right, which that one's pretty much the same what the other one said at the top. All right, so you have that. All right, a lot of these people that are users and abusers, they're people that don't have, like I said moments ago, they don't have a working bone in their body. All right, but see, they see you working and doing, so they like, okay, this person must have money. All right. No, I just work hard for mine, but I go out and I get my daily bread, but I keep it very simple. I manage my money, because I was just telling a person about their spending. I said, and they got mad. They didn't want to be told that. See, am I therefore your enemy because I tell you the truth? Like, hey, open rebuke is better than secret love. I was telling you about your spending. I'm like, look, you got money for DoorDash and this and that, but then you're running around trying to beg for money and be broke all week. I said, that stuff adds up. And now you're talking about you ain't got money for this, money for that, and then you're trying to bum all week. When you have a decent paycheck, you're not managing your money right, and then when you're going to get groceries, you got to put stuff back, and then you want to use that sob story to get people to try to help you out and loan you a little money, to get you through the week when you make decent money, but you had money for DoorDash and stuff, several times in the week, over the past weekend, and didn't look crazy during the week. That's insane but when you budget your money, okay, you do right, But this is the book of Proverbs, chapter 28, verse 19 says, he that tilleth his land shall have plenty of bread, but he that followeth after vain persons shall have poverty enough. Okay. And that's a problem with a lot of these individuals out here, man. You know what I'm saying? I can't see myself going down that type of road. I've always been like good with managing money and stuff like that. Even like in these times where it's crazy, times where everything is super high. Okay, you can't just do that. But these people, they get a little money, man, and then they just got to spend it. I'm like, put a little, have a little something put back. You know, emergency, thing can happen, and then you're looking, you know, and you expect people to just come to your aid. But a lot of people, like this person I was talking about, you know, being, you know, bumming and begging and stuff, you know, all the neighbors is like, man, we don't want to help this person, you know, and they all were calling it out too. They seen it. So, and then they start feeling some kind of way because now everybody's looking at them like, you know, you're just a beggar, you know, which is crazy. It's like, you need to do better, you know, with your money. All right. But I want to pull up this word beggar. It says, all right, a person, typically one who is homeless, who lives by asking for money or food. Okay. All right. But it's not always somebody that's homeless. It could be somebody, they got home and everything. They just be begging. All right. Look, you got similar words. Look, they got tramp on here. You got beggar man, beggar woman. All right. Vagabond is on there. You know, Esau's a vagabond. All right. Look, you got hobo. Hobo says a homeless person who lives by asking for money and food. All right. Look, scrounger. Okay. Bag lady. Freeloader. You got freeloaders. Look, bum. Okay. Look, you got mooch. Bag man. All right. And some other words. Okay. Look, crusty. You know, I've seen people being called crusty, man. All right. And see, when you live a beggar's life, you're going to be running around looking like this. Okay. Oliver Twist, man. You know, with that bow, you know, please, sir, can I have some more? Looking ass. Look at that, man. That's how you look, man. Okay. And like I said, there's people that are less fortunate and they're going through rough patch. And there's nothing wrong with it. You know, us in this faith and truth, we help brothers and sisters out. Okay. But you don't want to be a person that's like this, man. You know, using and abusing and taking an advantage. Okay. So with that, this is the book of Sirach, chapter 40, starting at verse 28. It says, my son, lead not a beggar's life. Okay. For it is better. Better it is to die than to beg. Look at that. That's heavy where it says it's better to die than to beg. Okay. You just begging and begging and begging all the time, you know. So it said, live not a beggar's life. Okay. Verse 29, it says, the life of him that dependeth on another man's table is not to be counted for a life. Damn. For he polluteth himself with another man, with other men's meat. Okay. But a wise man well nurtured will beware thereof. Okay. Verse 30, it says, begging is sweet in the mouth of the shameless. So they ain't got no shame. And then this person that we was talking about, I ain't got no shame. I ask and this for that. They ain't got no shame. Okay. But in his belly there shall burn a fire. Okay. Which this person was talking about how his stomach was hurting, you know, and that's very spiritual, because when they were saying all this, you start thinking about these precepts. It's like, man, like just that begging, man, you know, it's crazy. But like I said, you don't mind helping somebody out. But it's crazy because it's like this person ain't even homeless. They got money. It's just they're just not even good with their money. You know, they're not good with it. They choose to put they're buying a bunch of stuff that they truly can't afford, trying to live it up. And I said, oh, I want to treat myself. Well, yeah, if you got it like that, then yeah. But if you don't have it at that moment, keep it simple. Pay your rent, get your groceries, you know, do what you need to do, you know, and that's it. You know, but all that extra stuff, man, is crazy. You know? So again, it says, begging is sweet in the mouth of the shameless. All right. But it says, but in his belly there shall burn a fire. All right. Now, I also want to pull up the word leecher, because, you know, they're beggars, and then they're people that just leech. They'll leech unto you, you know, and that's it. Okay. You know, they'll leech on you. Right. And you got to be very careful of that. You know, like I said, I had kinfolk that were like that. I had so-called friends that were like that. OK. People that I was trying, you know, I thought that there was something there, like a relationship, you know, maybe it would have led to something. And they were nothing more but leeches, man. OK. But it says a leecher, all right, is a person who clings like a leech, all right, to another person for advantage or gain. OK. You got a word like parasite. Okay. Yeah. Parasite. All right. But they'll leech on you to try to see what they can get. Okay. That's why when, so-called friends and people, that you come in contact with, hey, you got to prove them, man. All right, this is Sirach 6, starting at verse 7. It says, if thou wouldest get a friend, prove him first, and be not hasty to credit him. All right. Verse 8, it says, for some man is a friend for his own occasion and will not abide in the day of thy trouble. So when you're in trouble, they won't be around. All right. But they always coming around trying to get what they can get out of you. All right. They're around when everything is good, but when things are bad, like I said, I'll be there for somebody, but you just got to be mindful, because the times that we're in, it's not really, ain't really that good out here right now. Okay, the days are evil, as the scripture says. All right, this is the book of Sirach 11 and verse 29. It says, bring not every man into thy house. So that's another thing too. Even in these times, you don't want to have everybody in your house. Okay, because these same people that come around like that, they might come around and try to get you for what you have in these times. All right, it says, for the deceitful man have many trains. Okay. Verse 30, it says, like as a partridge taken and kept in a cage, so is the heart of the proud. All right. And like as a spy, watcheth he for thy fall. Okay. So, yeah, you don't want to bring everybody into your house, man. Okay. Like it tells you here in the book of Matthew. All right. Give it a chance to load up. Matthew 24 and verse 12, okay, red letters, Yahushua speaking. And it says, and because iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold. And that's where we're at, right? Because a lot of these people, they don't have no love. You're like, where the love at? Like, damn, like, you did that to me? you know I'm a good person. And see, people, when they know you a good person, they'll prey on you. So you want to be mindful of that. You want to be careful, all right? But it says, because iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold, all right? So with that, this is the book of Isaiah chapter 30 and verse 1. All right. And I'll end it with this. And I pray this has been an edifying lesson. It's kind of something quick and straight to the point. But, it's okay to ask for help. It's okay for that. But if you're somebody who just be bumming and begging, one of the things they'll do is they'll go around and beg everybody, but you are not calling up on the Heavenly Father. All right. Who will give you what you need. Okay. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. All right. He supplies all our needs, man. But a lot of our people, they ain't calling on him. Okay. They'll call on any and everybody. A lot of them, they'll go to the heathen. All right. But they ain't calling on the Heavenly Father. Therefore, in these times that are coming, all right, they ain't gonna know what to do. They're going to be out of their mind, man. All right. This is Isaiah 30, starting at verse 1. It says, woe to the rebellious children, saith Yahweh, that take counsel, but not of me, and that cover with a covering, but not of my spirit, that they may add sin to sin. All right. Verse 3. All right. Or verse 2, Salakia. All right. That walk to go down into Egypt. All right. Which this place is spiritual Egypt, by the way. Talking about America. And have not asked at my mouth. Like I was saying, they're not calling on the Heavenly Father. To strengthen themselves in the strength of Pharaoh, and to trust in the shadow of Egypt. This is where their trust is. All right. In verse 3 it says, therefore shall the strength of Pharaoh be your shame, and the trust in the shadow of Egypt your confusion. All right. Shame and confusion is all that you're going to be left with. All right. You didn't call on Yahweh Bashem Yahushua, who would have supplied all your needs, man. Okay. All right. Don't live a beggar's life, man. And like I said, those that are cheerful givers, don't stop being a cheerful giver just because of some rotten apples, but be very mindful, all right? And if it looks like somebody is just coming around and they always in a bind, they always going through something. Hey, we all are, man. Okay, even those that might be cheerful givers, they going through stuff too. They might have responsibilities, But these people like that, they don't care. All right, and just be mindful. And if it's somebody that seems like they're that type of individual, like we were going to in this lesson, then hey, you could be like, hey, I've helped you in the past, but this is where it ends, and that's where you have to be. I've had to do it here recently, all right, because sometimes you'll help people out and then you tell them, and this is another thing that I didn't mention, but like when they, helping them out financially, you tell them, once you tell them that they got to pay you back, now all of a sudden they start acting funny and weird, and then it seems like they're trying to avoid you, all right, because you told them that you got to pay me back, yeah, you damn right, you're gonna pay me back. Times are hard, ain't nobody got it like that. But these people, they get their money and they don't think about that. They think, I'm gonna get this, I'm gonna get that, I'm gonna spend this and spend that, but they ain't thinking about paying you back. Okay? So that's where it gets cut off. Okay? So just be mindful of that in these dark days. But don't, like I said, that shouldn't stop you from being a cheerful giver. Just be mindful of who you're giving to. Okay? So with that, call all Yahweh Bashim Yahweh. I want to give all honor, all glory, and all praise unto Yahweh Bahashim Yahweh Shai, Bahashim Rakakwadash. Double honors unto the elders of the nation of Israel. And shalom to you brothers and sisters out there. And to the next one, shalom.